All right, question 9 on the test 3 review, we have the rectangular point negative square root of 7 comma 2 square root of 7. That's rectangular coordinates, and we want to change it to polar coordinates. Polar coordinates, of course, is given as a point with r first and then theta. R's radius, theta is the angle basically on our unit circle. So we're trying to find an r that's positive and a theta between 0 and 2 pi, so sometimes we have to adapt to the correct coterminal angle. The formulas to do that are Pythagorean theorem for r, so r equals the square root of x squared plus y squared, and then to find theta we use inverse tangent of y over x, but then we need to make sure we're doing the right quadrant. So the first thing I always like to do to check the quadrant is to graph the point. I don't need to be accurate, I just need to pay attention to the signs. So this is a negative, that goes left, and this is positive, that goes up. That means our point is in quadrant 2. That's important because when we do the inverse tangent of an angle, we're either going to get, our calculator will either give us a quadrant 1 angle or a quadrant 4 angle if it's negative. So in order for it to end up in quadrant 2, we have to take the quadrant 4 angle that we get here and add 180 to it or add pi to it to move it to a quadrant 2 angle instead, so that it's like the same reference angle, but a different quadrant. Okay, let's go ahead and do this problem. So r will equal the square root of negative square root of 7 squared plus 2 square root 7 squared. So when we square a negative, it just turns positive. So negative square root of 7 squared is just positive 7. And then 2 square root 7 squared, we square the 2, which is 4, and then square root of 7 times square root of 7 is 7, so 4 times 7 is 28. So 7 plus 28 is 50, no, 35, right? 35. So we can't simplify that radical at all. It's just going to stay square root of 35. We don't want like an approximate decimal or anything like that. And then this one, when we do the inverse tangent of 2 square root 7 over negative square root 7, that's just the inverse tangent of 2, because our square, no, negative 2, because our square root of 7s would cancel, and then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Quite often we'll actually find an approximate answer for something like this because we don't know the exact answer to this from our chart that we memorized in the beginning of the semester. But we could get an approximate answer by using a calculator if we wanted to. I know if you're looking at the answer key at all, though, you'll notice that the answer key is left as an exact answer instead of approximate. So I'm just going to do it both ways, just so that you can adapt to either situation. So the inverse tangent of negative 2 is approximately negative 63.43 degrees. But that's a fourth quadrant angle, and we want it to be a second quadrant angle. So to fix that, we're just going to add 180 to it. So add 180, and we get approximately 116. I'm just going to do one decimal place, 0.6. So we could give our r theta as square. We could give them both as decimals. Like we could do the square root of 35. So let's go ahead and do approximates on both answers. 5.9. I'll just do another one decimal on that. So the approximate answer would be to leave this as 5.9, comma 116.6. So the radius is 5.9 and 116.6 would be the number of degrees. It's good to do approximate if you're trying to actually graph it because then you know where to put the point on the graph. So that's important to know that and know how to find those answers. However, for the sake of our exact answer on the answer key, let's go ahead and take the exact stuff. So this is exact r is square root of 35. And exact theta would be inverse tangent or arctangent. I think the answer key says arctangent, but we've talked before about how that doesn't really matter. Now here's what they've done to the answer key. So what we did in this process here was we added 180 to our answer. Of course, they want our answer from 0 to 2 pi. I gave the answer here as in degrees. Technically, we want it in radians, but we're not going to find it anyway. We're just leaving it exact. So we could just take our arctangent or tangent to the -1. So our arctangent of -2, and just add pi to it. So there's one way to leave our exact answer. If you're looking at the answer key, which I'm glad I pulled up from the beginning so I could kind of plan ahead for it, the answer key says square root of 35, so we got that part right. But on this part, they've done pi minus arctangent of 2. All they've done there to create an equivalent value is used the odd-even properties, which is the fact that tangent is an odd function. That means if we're doing the negative of an odd function, that's the same thing as the negative. So that if we're doing the arctangent of a negative value, then that's the same as a negative of a positive value because of the odd-even functions, because it's an odd function. So this answer is correct, but so is this answer. They mean exactly the same thing. And so since your test is multiple choice, for the most part, there are some fill in the blanks. Make sure that you know things are equivalent. So like if you don't see that answer in the answers, then you know that that means the same thing. So just some things to think about.